Hi, I'm Jordan, and I have been tagged, which is fantastic. Tags are one of my favorite things to watch on BookTube, so it was really great to actually be directly tagged by someone. And I was tagged by Jack, the Rambling Raconteur. And the tag is the Coffee Brand's book tag. It was created by Josh over at Literary Gladiators, and it goes a little something like this. Prompt number 1 is Maxwell House, a work that was good to the last drop. For this, I'm going to go with Orlando by Virginia Woolf. Now, everything I've read by Virginia Woolf is good to the last drop, but this in particular is just so dense and enjoyable, and there's just such an embarrassment of riches in terms of the fantastical flow of it and the gorgeous, elegant language of every single sentence of this thing. So that was certainly good to the last drop. Prompt number 2 is Folgers, a work that you were eager to resume reading. Jack's answer for this was the Essays of Montaigne, which I thought was absolutely perfect, but I'm going to try not to repeat him. So I was actually considering doing another Virginia Woolf book for this answer. I was going to do The Common Reader, which is a collection of her literary essays, including one on Montaigne, actually. But I'm actually going to end up going with The Occult Book by John Michael Greer. A number of months ago, I left a comment on one of Jason Harrigan's videos, back when he had his older channel, asking for some recommendations for good kind of general introductions to the occult, and this was one of the titles that he gave me, and this has been absolutely fascinating. And I'm also not generally super invested in the way a book looks, but this is quite handsome, despite its kind of tacky cover. Each entry comes with a full-page color illustration or photograph. There's John Dee demonstrating for Queen Elizabeth. So it's really, here's the Great Fire of London. I've really enjoyed looking through this kind of in between reading other stuff. And if somehow this is the first time you're hearing about Jason's channel, you should definitely check it out. Not only is he extremely well read, but he's also an antique books dealer and a Benedictine. And he may or may not also be a sorcerer. So it's a great channel. Prompt number 3 is Chock full of nuts, a work that transports you to a wealthy environment. This might be a bit of a stretch, but I'm going to go with Locus Solace by Raymond Roussel. This is about a very wealthy man and his estate, which is called Locus Solace, and he invites a bunch of people over to kind of demonstrate his various inventions, which are marvelously strange. This is kind of a proto-surrealist novel. I think it was written in the early 20th century, but I think it's a good introduction to surrealism because it's what I think of as sunny surrealism. It doesn't really get, it never really lapses into pretension or self-seriousness. It's just a lot of fun and wonderfully odd, like I said. All right, number 4 is Duncan, a scene-stealing supporting character. Last fall, I read The Lady in White, or The Woman in White by Will P. Collins, expecting to really like it because it seemed like it was kind of right up my alley. I was quite disappointed in it, unfortunately, but the character of Count Fosco, who's kind of the villain of the novel, I thought was mesmerizing. He is lovable and charming while also being quite sinister, so he certainly kind of single-handedly made that book worthwhile for me, personally. Number 5 is Wawa, work that makes you think about New Jersey. I could not think of a single book that I know of that has anything to do with New Jersey, so I'll try and make up for that by naming my favorite band from New Jersey, which is Yo La Tengo, and also the show Aqua Teen Hunger Force, which I grew up watching on Adult Swim. I believe that's set in New Jersey, so that's another favorite of mine. Number 6 is Starbucks, a writer you find pretentious but admirable. I'm going to say Henry James, who has a notoriously wordy, ornate style, but I think it's pretty effective as far as immersing you in the atmosphere of his novels. And when he chooses to make that atmosphere kind of charged and unsettling, it really sticks with me. But I admit that he often chooses to make his atmosphere quite tedious and dull. Actually, Jack at The Rambling Raconteur just made a video, and he described Henry James as Rococo realism, which I thought was quite apt. Number 7 is McCafe, an excellent source of world literature. I am shamefully underread when it comes to world literature, so if anyone has any recommendations for this, please leave a comment down below. I'd love to see it. Number 8 is Peet's, a work that especially succeeds with its words. I'm going to go with Ridley Walker by Russell Hoban. This is a post-apocalyptic novel, but it's a highly unusual one. It takes place many centuries after a nuclear holocaust, and not only has human civilization decayed, but the English language has decayed along with it. And this is written in the first person, so it is written in that decayed form of English, which is kind of like a cross between like medieval English and modern Cockney English. So it's an extremely interesting reading experience. It's good on its own, but the weird flow of the language is probably my favorite aspect of it. Number 9 is Café Bustelo, a work from a Spanish-speaking country that translates especially well into English. Of course, Gabriel Garcia Marquez's 100 Years of Solitude came to mind here, but I'm actually going to go with my favorite writer of short stories, and that's Borges. Not only are these stories endlessly thought-provoking, but I really enjoy his very economical writing style. He seems to have never written an unnecessary word. They're so carefully done. They're almost clinical, but in a way that I really like. Number 10 is Lavazza, a work that gives you a scene of Italy or Italian culture. I'm going to say Orlando Furioso by Ariosto, simply because it's a work of the Italian Renaissance. But this book, or this poem, is so whimsical and vibrant and playful. There's one scene I always think about when I think about this book, where this knight is trying to seduce this woman, and she's in love with someone else, so she denies him, and in a fit of rage, he chops off her head. And as her head goes bouncing along the floor, each time her head bounces, she says the name of the man that she loves. And this poem is just full of moments like that. It's so much fun. And also, I think it's pretty ahead of its time in terms of the way it deals with sex and gender. So if you haven't read it, I highly recommend giving it a shot. Number 11 is 8 o'clock, your favorite use of a time of day in a song. I'm going to say Meet Me in the Morning by Bob Dylan, which is off of my favorite Bob Dylan album, Blood on the Tracks. Number 12 is Gevalia, a writer whose works are always rich. For this, I'm going to say John Crowley. This writer has done more than any other writer. This writer has lifted my spirits, for lack of a better word. He just has a way of making the world seem so fantastical and full of possibilities. It's to the point where when I put down one of his books, I almost feel kind of high for a little while until the effect wears off. This is Little Big, which is my favorite, but he also did the Egypt series, which is fantastic, and a couple years ago he did, his most recent one is called Ka, which is also very, very good. If you have read anything by this guy, please let me know what you think, because I have never heard him mentioned, I don't think I've ever heard him mentioned anywhere at all in BookTube, which I think is a terrible shame. So definitely, if you haven't read him, please do check him out, and if you do, spread the word, because I feel like he's criminally underappreciated. Number 11 is Chase and Seabourn, your favorite literary partnership. I'm going to say Mason and Dixon in Thomas Pynchon's Mason and Dixon. I'm not generally a huge Thomas Pynchon fan, but this I absolutely love. If I were going to cast my vote for the great American novel, this would probably be it, despite the fact that it's technically about two Englishmen, Mason and Dixon, but their relationship is pretty much the heart of this book. And for a lot of the book, it's basically built around, slapstick humor and kind of goofy banter, but it eventually develops into something kind of tender and nuanced, which are not things I generally associate with Pynchon. So that's a favorite of mine for sure. Number 11 is Martinson, your favorite word or expression that originated in a work of literature. Probably Curiouser and Curiouser from Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. Number 15 is Native American Coffee, a work by a Native American you would like to read. I'm going to go with The Master Butcher's Singing Club by Louise Erdrich. I've heard a lot of great things about this writer. This book was recommended to me probably like 15 years ago, and I still have not gotten to it, so hopefully I'll be getting to that sometime in the near future. 16 is Sanka. How would you go about reading more works from different genres? BookTube, plain and simple. BookTube is a fantastic place to get recommendations of that sort. In fact, for most of my reading life, I have not read really any nonfiction at all. Excuse me. But when I started watching BookTube, I kind of got into it, and now it's probably about half of what I read is nonfiction. I don't know if that's going to stay that way, but it's certainly been an interesting change brought about by watching BookTube. 17, your favorite brand of coffee? Folgers. That's just what I buy. It's what I drink every day, mostly out of habit. And number 18 is Who Do You Tag? I feel like I'm getting kind of late to this, so pretty much anyone who I would tag has already been tagged. But if you're seeing this and you haven't been tagged, consider yourself tagged and give it a shot. It's a lot of fun. So that is the Coffee Brands book tag. So thank you for watching. Have a good day.